Greetings Petrolheads, my name is Tom, you're on my gaming channel, and it's time for another episode of Automation, a car company tycoon game. So today I'm going to be reviewing some more cars, and they are again sent in from Sedan 57 Chevy, and here he basically revised the two cars that I reviewed from him last week. And so we're gonna start with the Colonial the Colonial Touring Coupe CTC, and this one is made from corrosion resistant steel on the chassis and the panels. It is front longitudinal and double wishbones all around. We can see the V8 in here already. We're of course gonna take a closer look at that later. As far as aesthetics go, this looks very much like a Bentley on the front. There's no number plate, but that's alright. We can live with that. You just imagine it being like right here or something. It does have quad exhaust this time, and the taillight arrangement is interesting. It's definitely not for everyone. And I think there's something it reminds me of. I just can't. It doesn't roll off my tongue now. But there is one particular car that this makes me think of. I just can't seem to recall its name. Anyway, it is all-wheel drive this time, and we got a 5-liter V8 in there. So, let's see, this is made from aluminium with quad cams and with 4 bars per cylinder. So, it is made from very expensive materials here: billet steel, I-beam steel, forged pistons, 92.7 times 92.6, so almost perfectly square. 10.1 to 1 compression ratio with a 58 cam profile. Does look like he cut off the rev limit just a little bit. It could rev higher, but that's still okay. It is naturally aspirated, we saw that. It is a single point EFI in 1991, so that's pretty much on par with the best of its class here. Performance intakes. Well, yeah. Interested to know why you chose those, but then again, this is going to be an expensive car to begin with, so the service costs are not a primary concern. 53 ignition timing is relatively moderate, actually quite low, if I do say so myself, because I normally go for a pretty high ignition timing in order to make the peak power earlier. But this seems to be working out here. Long tubular exhaust with dual exhausts. Yeah, with dual pipes, and a little bit too much diameter maybe? Let's see. This would gain us some torque, and some performance, but it would lose 3 horsepower here. Okay. So let's listen to this thing. Also, what's interesting about this engine is that despite being a 5-liter V8, it does not seem to make very much low-end torque. You can see that most of the torque comes in like right here, which is like 3,300 or something. But from there it makes a pretty nice torque plateau. However, I would probably prefer there to be a little bit more, either a little bit more bottom end or a little bit higher revs. Let's see, does this mess with our reliability? Now it starts. 6300, which would still be fine. 6500. then the pistons will start complaining. With a lightweight forged? Oh, then we have valve float as well. Okay, let's just leave it at what it was. Good. So what does that engine mean in practice? We got a 5-speed manual gearbox, which is interesting in a luxury coupe. You would probably rather have an automatic gearbox in there, but a manual is still fine. It looks like we have a little bit of overdrive here with a very rear biased power distribution of the all-wheel drive, making 0 wheel spin whatsoever. So that's great. That makes it very safe to drive, but this does not. So it likes to oversteer, huh? Curious to know why you set it up that way. Vented discs with 3 pistons in the front and 2 pistons in the rear, with a very comfortable pad type. You can see that this is a little bit, maybe too much on the comfort side. Yeah, this gives us, well, it doesn't give us all that much. It doesn't really make a big difference in the whole scheme of things, but so it's fine. The top speed is 298 kilometers per hour. We do not have any quality in here. Oh, and it looks like he designed the engine first and then did the design so he would only have to put a small grill here in order to meet all the cooling requirements. And because, you know, all the if he had additional vents somewhere or grills, then even if he does not use all the cooling capacity of it, it would still make the drag a little bit worse. So that's an interesting philosophy. I've never done that myself before, because well, maybe I'm a little bit too much focused on the aesthetics, and I like to design my cars in such a way that they look good, and then that at least I think they look good, and then adjust the cooling airflow and usually drag it way down so that I still have enough. We only got 2 seats in here with a sport interior. Sport interior. Well, that's interesting. Luxury cassette entertainment, all driver aids and advanced safety options. Looks like we do have a pretty sporty suspension setup here, and that is why we have oversteer. But we do got air suspension. I don't know. This seems to be a little bit questionable when it comes to the interior choice here. Why the sport? Why the sport interior if it's actually meant to be a GT car? It is still expensive and quite heavy. But let's see what it does. 6.4 seconds, 0 to 100. It's not amazing, but it's not slow. It's definitely not slow. Let's see how things would change if we went for luxury here. It would decrease our drivability by a little bit, our sportiness by a little bit, but would add almost 9 points of comfort and a little bit of safety, while increasing the weight by only 30 kilograms? That surprises me a little bit. And it's actually cheaper. Okay, so, you know, I don't want to criticize you here or anything like that, but luxury would probably be the better choice overall. Let's see if this affects our performance in any way or form. Yeah, 0.1 seconds slower from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour. So, okay, overall I think this is a decent car. It could maybe use a little bit more refinement, especially on the suspension, because nobody wants an oversteering luxury car. And go for the luxury interior so that you can at least commit to that. It'll still be how sporty? 42.8, so it doesn't lose very much there at all. But there is a second trim of this car, and it's called Limited, and it is rear-wheel drive. The V8 still seems to be the 5-liter that we've seen in the other trim. We got 40 cam profile, so that's way lower, and more bottom end torque. And looks like we could still use a little bit more compression ratio, but it doesn't add that much. And it is still naturally aspirated. Still performance intake on the single point EFI. Still 6200 RPM limit, but this time we have a little bit of overrun, so it makes the power earlier. And we got dual exhausts again. It'll sound basically the same, so I'm not gonna do that whole thing again. It is an automatic this time though. And the first gear goes to 100 kilometers an hour. It is more economical and more drivable and way more comfortable. However, we did lose more than half of our sportiness here. We can see that. How much wheel spin do we have? 32.4%. This is nice and tame. So it looks like the GT is more of a is the more sporty one, like the one that's aimed towards a more sporty market. Wait, what? This only has 205mm rear tires. I'm not sure why, but I think you should consider giving this thing a little bit wider tires, because with how much, 315 horsepower? Yeah, 315 horsepower, you would probably prefer to have a little bit more rubber on the rear end here, on the rear axle. 3 pistons front, 2 in the rear, we saw that, but it's not vented discs anymore, it's solid discs this time. And that's a surprisingly difficult sentence to say. We got less cooling and some brake airflow this time. 4 seats with luxury, and advanced. And again, all driver rates. And what appears to be a comfortable suspension preset with hydro pneumatic springs for maximum comfort. So this really seems to be paying off. I'm not totally sure why you went for 2 different models when they are so similar in the engine department. Actually, 70 horsepower is a big difference, but why didn't you just give the other car the luxury interior and maybe tuned your suspension so a little bit more towards the understeering side, and then you would have 1 good car instead of 2 that are not bad, but you know, average in their relative segment. Because this, I really don't know why this one, the luxury one, is rear-wheel drive, and with that why it only has 205 rear tires. And on the other hand, this one, the GT, could really make do with a little bit more suspension tuning here. For example, if we lower the spring stiffness in the rear by only 2 clicks, we still have a very sporty handling, but more on the understeer side. So that is what people would probably prefer to this, which is sporty but also oversteering. So I don't and I don't fully understand the point in having two separate cars, neither of which are truly tremendous in their segment. So let's, and so I'm back. I don't want to seem harsh, like they're not bad cars, but they could both use some more refinement. But we do have still another car to review, like two trims of another car, and that is the Executive, which replaces the Brigadier that we saw last time. And this is a huge saloon body and some very interesting taillights, I think, and I definitely prefer those. And the front looks pretty similar to what we've seen on the Colonial Touring Coupe. Is this a small lip down there, or is that just, you know, yeah, it's probably just the chassis sticking out. That's not his fault, that's, you know, a little bit of a bug in the game. So let's see. This car is also made from corrosion resistant steel, but it's a ladder chassis, and with McPherson's front, semi-trailing our rear, and longitudinal engine placement. And again, we do have a V8 in there. So the front tires, or the maximum front tires, is 205, and on the rear 275, but that's kind of irrelevant, since what matters is not the theory but the praxis. So the headlights are again, the front basically is very similar to the CTC, and I think that's good, you know, to make a brand image, if you will, so that people can recognize the cars from your brand just by looking at their front. So it's good in that regard. Personally, I would probably make the grille just a little bit bigger, and so that it fits the height of the chrome surroundings here. And yeah, but I think, well, I like it. And the rear end, I think, is also pretty nicely designed with those three red taillights next to each other, and the badge in between looks good. But what really matters is not only this tab to see that it's all-wheel drive, but also this. So we get a 5.7 liter V8 in there. Well, basically, some might say 5.8 since it's more than 5,700 cc. It's a direct acting OHC, which keeps the spirit of the previous engine from the Brigadier, that is. We have a lot of quality on the bottom end, like maximum quality, probably because this insane stroke would otherwise not allow for the rev limit that we have here, which is 5600 RPM. Let's see. Yes, and at 5700 it already starts reducing our reliability. So we got a very expensive bottom end again. We got 48 cam profile, 9.1 compression ratio. Yeah, I think we can, if we did it like this way and then increase this just a little bit more, we would lose 2 horsepower, but we would make more torque, and we would also make that torque earlier, so that's maybe something to consider. Oh, actually, we did not lose horsepower, we stayed the same. But still, it's naturally aspirated. Again, a single point EFI with performance intake and 95 octane run. Pretty rich fuel mixture. 92 ignition timing and 5600 RPM limit. Long tubular exhausts with dual pipes and a more adequate exhaust diameter, and plus 15 quality on the exhaust as well. I don't fully understand why, but Yeah. So that is it, and he could make better use of the fuel octane here. He could increase this like 4 more times and get 4 horsepower more and 9 newton meters more and a little bit more economy. But let's leave it where it was, and let's listen to it. So what we see here is that material costs are very low, but the production units are really high. What that means is we're using cheap materials, but high quality technology, if you will. So we got a manual gearbox in here, a manual 5-speed. First gear again crossing the 100 kilometers an hour threshold. The top speed is 330 kilometers an hour. That's really good. And they do have only rear-wheel drive, basically. Wasn't this supposed to be all-wheel drive? Okay, so we got a very tame car here, with 0.99 drivability and only 0.75 sportiness. But then again, this is a luxury saloon car, and we don't need it to be sporty. And so I'm interested to know why he chose the sports compound tires. Well, it actually makes sense, because most luxury cars these days also come on sports tires. You can look at the Bentleys. I'm not sure about the Rolls Royces, whether they come on sports tires or not, but sports tires are generally stickier, which makes for better traction. So I think that actually makes sense. So vented discs in front and rear, 2 pistons front, 1 in the rear, and yeah, the pad types are a little bit too much on the comfort side. You can see here that just by increasing this, I lowered the 100 to 0, well, the stopping distance by more than 3 meters, and that in reality matters. And that didn't do all that much. No, this is the rear end is fine, but on the front, yeah, this definitely needs some optimization, because this is not only a slider for race and comfort, it also, this graph right here matters quite a lot, because you can see the more saturated red line is how much grip the front tires have, whereas the less saturated red line is how much stopping power your brakes have. So if the stopping power is below your tire grip, then you're not using your brakes very effectively. This way, however, they're very close together, so that you can push the brakes as hard as you can, and the tires will still have basically enough grip to stop very quickly. And you can see that this makes a very big difference in the stopping distance. Whereas if I put it like here, then it does not make my stopping distance any better, because the front tires only have so much grip, and it doesn't really matter that the brakes are stronger. So 50 would pretty much be ideal here, but he had it at 20, so let's leave it at this to see the final stats later. Fully clad. This does not have any lips or wings, so that the wing angle doesn't matter. Cooling airflow is more than we need, that's fine. Good reliability. brake airflow, also for good reliability. We have no downforce, but we don't need it. 4 seats, again with the sport interior? What's up with that? Then luxury cassette, all driver aids, advanced safety. And what appears to be again a pretty sporty setup. However, we still don't really make a lot of sportiness on our handling. So final stats are 49, 28.6, 29.7, 40.4 and 57.4. 0 to 100 kilometers now takes 6.5 seconds. Let's run it down a quarter mile. This takes quite some time to actually get into its rev range where it starts going. So maybe if you geared the car in such a way that it would hit 100 kilometers an hour in second gear, like so, yeah, that would improve the 0 to 100 kilometers an hour time, but it'll also increase wheel spin. But then again, this is normally supposed to be a all-wheel drive, so if you just put a little bit of love in here, you can see that we don't have any wheel spin, and our 0 to 100 kilometers an hour time is 5.3 seconds. But again, I'm gonna put it back to where it was. And since this is not my car, I'm supposed to be the guy reviewing it, so I don't really fully understand why you made it all-wheel drive but sent all the power only to the rear wheels. That is something that I can't really come up with a good reason for. But we do have another trim of this car, so, and that is again the limited edition, which is only rear-wheel drive to begin with. We have a different setup on the V8 here. You can see that this does not have the performance intakes anymore, just by looking at this intake pipe. It is still a 5.7 liter or 5.8 or whatever. It's got lower cam profile, a lot less power output, runs on regular gas. Yeah, that's what I expected when I saw the compression that low. Still naturally aspirated, still single point EFI, very lean fuel mixture, so we're gonna make a good amount of economy here. The exhausts are too big. Yeah, this would definitely benefit us to make it a little bit smaller. This, on the other hand, yeah, 2 inches would probably be ideal here. And the exhaust quality is still very high. Oh, I actually forgot to check the total cost on the previous version. We got an automatic gearbox this time. Still a geared LSD, which in 1991 is very high tech, I have to say. But let's move on here. It's medium compound tires with 17-inch rims, more sportiness, like significantly more sportiness than on the GT version, and almost as much drivability with 0.98 as opposed to 0.99. 17-inch rims, 215s in the rear. We do not have wheel spin though, so that's interesting. Why do we not get wheel spin with 215mm tires on a 330 horsepower engine? That's something I don't fully understand, but it works. So, oh yeah, and this time we do have plenty of brakes here, because we now have 3 pistons in the front. Didn't we have 3 pistons in the front on the previous model as well? Or was it 2 and 1? Again, I don't remember, but this time we have 3 front and 2 in the rear, with 350mm front and 300 in the rear, making for some pretty admirable stopping distances. Actually, yeah, 39.3 meters is better than the other trim, the GT trim. And again we have fully clad under tray, more than enough cooling airflow and brake airflow as well. Luxury interior this time at 5 seats instead of 4, I think. I think we had 4 on the GT. Yeah, we had 4 here. And let's check the brakes. Yeah, two front and 1 rear. So the Limited is actually a little bit more refined. It does have better brakes. It does have better interior. No traction or stability control though. Still, the drivability is at 53.1. What would it be with those two? 56.1. We would lose some sportiness, but that's not really that big of a deal. We do have hydro pneumatic springs again with what looks to be a comfort preset. And still the sportiness is that high. That's good. So this out of the two, this is probably the one I'd go for. Mainly because it seems that it does its job better. Like, it is a luxury saloon, and this one is way better at that than the GT version. Which is just kind of confusing, I think, as on the Colonial touring car as well. However, the Executive Limited is quite expensive, so is the GT, isn't it? Trim. Yes, it is. However, the Limited somehow manages to handle its power output way better than the GT does, and it overall the Limited just makes more sense to me, because on the GT what confuses me most is why is it all-wheel drive when it only powers the rear wheels? Why not go ahead and make it rear-wheel drive to begin with, and then you know, set up your suspension properly. However, with this one we do have a pretty nice suspension graph here, a pretty nice handling graph. Good bit of sportiness while also being extremely drivable. We have 52.1 comfort, we have luxury interior and entertainment. It would probably make more sense to put the drive reps, to put all the drive rates in it there as well. We do have this automatic gearbox that people like in luxury cars. We do have a top speed of 295.6 kilometers an hour. First gear still goes to 100 kilometers an hour, but this is not a drag racing car or anything like that, so it's fine. Quarter mile 16.3 as opposed to the what is that? Was that the GT version 14.4 or was that the Colonial GT? I don't know. But anyway, overall I think this is the one I'd go for. It just makes more sense on a luxury saloon. This is actually quite a good luxury saloon if I do say so myself. But why is it so good is that it has a good amount of drivability and a good amount of comfort, prestige and safety. And it does handle its power very well, even though it only has two 15mm rear tires. You do not get wheel spin. And just overall the setup with the suspension and the interior makes much more sense than it does in the GT. So overall, this is the one I'd go for. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please click the like button, it helps out a great deal. Also subscribe if you want to see more in the future. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.